G'day guys, Socket here. Today we're going to continue on with our REW car audio tuning tutorial series, and we are picking up where we left off in the last episode, where we were using the analog mic to do some full range sweeps. Then we put some crossovers in, and now we're going to measure those crossovers and see how they turned out and make small adjustments before getting ready to move on to the EQ section. So let's go see how those crossovers turned out. Okay, so here we are back in the garage once again. Apologies for all the domestic noise and things that might go on in the background. So let's go start by measuring the tweeters. So we're going to head over to the DSP. Here we go. So we go to the left tweeter. We want to make sure that that's selected as the tweeter that's playing, and make sure everything else is muted, which it is. That's great. We have our crossover at 3300. Everything looks good to go. So let's go back to REW, to the measurement tool, and let's just check our levels again, because now we're doing the tweeter. And it's saying level low, but that's fine. It's going to measure at 53, and we're well below the limit of 100 dB. So let's take a measure. Before we do that, we've got to put in a name for the file. So let's call that left tweeter crossover 3300. So let's go. So there's the first sweep. There's the second sweep, and here is our measurement. So we need to click on SPL and phase. Fantastic. So we've got the frequency response and we've got the phase response, and there's the measurement there. So the first thing we'll need to do is just go and clean that up by wrong. So I go into all SPL, clear everything, go and select. Now I need to scroll down to see it. Measurement 10, and you can see that that's in 148 resolution, so I need to smooth that out and click on 1/6, and that looks much better. So before we go and measure the other speaker, let's just see how that stacks up to the original full range measurement, which is measurement number 1, and let's see what it's done. Now we have these in two different levels because I think I changed the mic measurement volume between now when I did my first sweeps. So I'm going to have to change this by using measurement actions, select the left tweeter with the crossover, which is measurement 10. I'm just going to scroll down until they kind of line up. So here we go. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and you know, that's looking pretty close. So I'm going to call that, minus. I need to put in minus 10. What's minus 10 look like? Yeah, I think it's minus 10. Minus 10 dB to each of these crossover measures to get them to line up with our original measurement. But that aside, you can see that the crossover which we put in at 3300 has pulled the crossover, pulled the slope right back like that. So that looks like that's working perfectly fine. So before I do that, I need to add that to the measurement so it doesn't move. And just remember, I need to take 10 dB off every measurement going forward. Okay, so let's go and do the next one. So I want to go into the DSP. I select the next tweeter along, which will be the right tweeter, and then we'll go into REW, the measurement tool, and change the name to right tweeter, and take the measurement. So here we go. There's the first sweep. And the second sweep. And there we go, we've got our second measure. I'm going to smooth that as well. And while I'm here, I will take off that 10 decibel adjustment. Right, fantastic. So now we have the left and right, and I'm just going to change that color to something else. I'll make it green, maybe. That'll do. Okay, and now we have the left and right tweeter. The crossovers have pulled them down, so they've got a nice smooth slope going down here. Something funky going on here with the left tweeter. But if I compare the right tweeter to the right full range measure, which is measurement 2, once again you can see how all of that has been pulled down by the crossover. So that looks fantastic. So what I'm going to do is not hold you guys up. I'll go and take the other measurements and be right back. Okay, that's all the measurements taken. They were all recorded at minus 12 dB, and so now let's have a look at all the measurements together, because if we remember back in the DSP when we had all of the crossovers displayed at once, just turn them all on, so the tweeters, the mids and the mid basses, and if you remember correctly, we had the mid bass and the mids, and the front sub slightly lower than the rest of the levels, and so I just want to check whether that is reflected in the REW measurements. So let's turn everything on. So we've already got the rear sub and the front sub turned on. Let's turn on the tweeters, so that's left and right, the mids left and right, and the mid bass left and right, and let's overlay the house curve, and let's make the house curve black so it stands out. There we go, and you can see that with the crossovers in, the house curve is running through the middle and then up here to meet the rear sub, but as we suspected, the front sub, so let me just turn all of these off for a second, put the house curve back on, let's put on the front sub. You can see that it is below the target line by, what's that, 77.3 versus 97.9, so about 2.5 dB. And the mid bass, if we put them both there, are also below the house curve by 72.7 versus 75.6. So about 3 dB. Hang on, let me just double check. I want to make sure this is right. So let's call it 73 versus the house curve target of 75.5. So also about 2.5 dB. So what we'll do is go back into the DSP and go to the front sub, and we're going to add on 2.5 dB, which will make this 7.5, and the mid basses. So the low, we're going to add on 2.5 dB, which will make it that's a 0.5 and 0.5. Oops, there we go. So now we've had those small adjustments made, and we'll go back and remeasure the 2 mid basses and the front sub. Sorry about all that mucking around. And if we have a look at those now, you can see that they're right exactly on the house curve line where we want them. which is fantastic. The rear sub, beautiful, and then we have our mids, and finally our tweeters. So everything seems to be in where it should be, following the house curve nicely. So let's quickly go through and have a look at these measurements. Actually, I decided to bring the results indoors and put them up on the main desktop screen, away from the traffic noise and things, so we can have a proper look at these. So let's open up the results and start working through them one by one. So starting with the left tweeter versus the full range, you can see that the crossover has pulled all of that in, and yep, that looks like a nice 24 dB slope. If we have a look at the right tweeter against its full range, it's done the same thing, right? So pulled all that in. So we can get rid of the full range measures and compare the right tweeter and the left tweeter together, and they look pretty good. If we turn on the house curve, you can see that it's exactly where it where we want it to be, and with all of this stuff we'll end up EQing it out and filling in that little gap, and it should turn out pretty well. So that is the tweeters. Let's have a look at the mids. So the left mid versus the left mid full range. So once again, you can see the effect of a crossover. So when you apply a crossover, the level is pulled down near the crossover region, right? So you can see that happening on both sides, there and there. And it's pulled, this whole graph down like this on both sides, and that's why this looks like it's no longer matching, but it's actually just the graph being sort of pulled down around this area. So that is the left mid, and looks like the crossovers have worked pretty well, so we can get rid of that full range, and let's look at the right mid, and you can see the same effect. It's got rid of that and all of that, so that's fabulous. When we stack them up side by side, left and right mid, once again the 24 dB crossover slopes on both sides, and then the rest of this is all pretty messy. If we bring the house curve in, what we'll do is get rid of all of this stuff above the line, and we'll just be left with this sort of scoop out, which is a cancellation caused by my tweeter pods near the windscreen, and this bit of a mess that's going on between 1 and 2K. But where we're crossing over the mids and the tweeters, which is here at 3,000, 300, like there, we're avoiding all of this messy area, so we should be able to EQ that out okay. So that is the tweeters and the mids, so we'll get rid of those. And let's have a look at the mid bass. So this is the left mid bass, that looks pretty good, and the right mid bass, which has a few problems. You can see that we've got this shoulder here that's sort of sucked out, and we've got this cancellation or dip going on here that is really not following this this 24 dB slope very well on this side. It's not too bad on that side if we didn't have that scoop out. But I'll come back later to have another look at this and talk about what we might be able to do, because we may want to do some fine tuning to make our life easier. If we put the house curve up, we can see that that's, the levels look pretty okay for the house curve. So that is the mid bass. But before we move on, let's have a look how they stack up against the full range measures. So left mid bass against the left full range. You can see that it's got rid of all of that, and you can see the effect of when you put two crossovers in, how they pull the levels down. And so compared to our original measures, that's kind of dropped 77 to 75. So it's dropped about 2 dB just by the effect of the crossovers. So that's the left-hand side. The right-hand side versus its free range, note the same result. The crossover pulls all of that, all that level down. So that's how they look versus their full range. Okay, so let's move on to the front sub. So that looks pretty nice versus its full range measure, which was looked like that. So it's got rid of all of this energy. And if we turn that full range off and compare it to our mid basses, there's the right and the left. We're crossing over here. So it's going to cross over at at 100, 104, something like that. But that's a nice a nice curve. It's kind of following these ones here once we clean them up, and they're equidistant to this crossover going over here. So we should be able to fill up this gap here without any problems. So just getting rid of those mid-bass measures now. Where's the other mid-bass? Here it is. Great, so let's have a look at the rear sub versus the rear sub in full range, and it's got rid of all of this mess, and they're in the same color. So I'm going to change that so we can see the difference. There's the purple full range, and the red color is the with the crossover. So remembering we haven't got a crossover over here, we've just left that end, and you can see putting the crossover here has pulled this whole level down a couple of dB as well. So let's get rid of the full range and compare that to the front sub. So here we've got this 24 dB slope going off here and the slope going off there, and we're going to EQ out that bit. We won't be able to boost this, so we will probably need to push this level up so that we can, when we do the EQ work, we can try to get this area to sort of be, I guess, closer up to here, right? Maybe a little bit. So let's have a look at these two problem areas. That's the right rear and the right mid bass. Okay, so let's bring up the problem areas that we want to sort of work on and fix. So that will be the mid bass, and we can get rid of the front sub for the minute, just so we have less stuff on the screen. So the problem areas we have is this kind of scooped out area on the rear sub, and on the right mid bass, this problem area here and this problem area here, and we can fix both of these probably using some extra level. So if we start with the this right mid bass, let's turn the rear sub off for a second, and we might be able to lift this up. So this gap, if we push this whole blue graph this way, it will close up these areas. We won't have as much to deal with. So let's just check out the DSP to see how much wriggle room that we actually have. So we'll go into here, and we want the right mid bass, and at the moment we've got half a dB of gain. So I think this maxes out at 5. Yeah, that's right. So we have 4.5 dB of wriggle room to play with, so to speak. So let's go see how much we would need. So we go into actions, measurement action, select, this is measurement 15, so the right mid bass. We'll just turn that off for a second, and we can push this up a little bit. That's 2 dB. We can push it up to let's say 4 dB, and now you can see that the these problem areas have got much smaller. should be able to, like the EQ should be able to sort of deal with this and this. So at the peak it's 79 versus 75, so 4 dB, deal with there. And these slopes, but maybe 3.5 would be workable, something like that. So once again, you would go into the DSP, you would select the right low, and you would add on 3.5 of gain, so that would take us from 0.5 dB to 4. Now once again, you would go into REW, you would do a sweep measure, a new measure would pop up here on the list, and you would replace the old measure, right? So don't forget to do that. And I can't do that because we're just in demo mode, so the best I can do is to add that 3.5 using the data offset button. So that's the correction made to the mid bass, and now with this problem area is a lot smaller. And now let's have a look at finally the rear sub. So we'll get rid of these mid bass measures, add on the rear sub. So this is the problem area here. Now we could use a low shelf filter to try to sort of boost that up to that level. That might be one way to do it. Let's just see how much wriggle room we've got in the DSP. So let's click over here. Let's go to the rear sub, and it's currently set at -10 dB, so we've got plenty of room to play with here if we need to. And we go into actions, measurement actions, pick the rear sub, which is measurement 17, and let's just have a bit of a play. So that's 1.5 dB, that's 3 dB. That's now 92 versus 89, so 3 dB difference. And then we've got this massive peak, 94 to 84, 10 dB peak here. Maybe 3 dB is too much. Maybe bring it back to 2.5, something like that. Should be able to deal with that and just cut that off. And if we bring in the front sub, so let's change the crossover a little bit, but when we EQ this stuff off, we're going to get a nice kind of response like this with the rear sub, and that's going to integrate really nicely with the front sub. So let's bring in our other measures. So we've got our left mid bass. They all look pretty equidistant and following the same kind of lines. And then we've got our right mid bass, and just let's bring in all the speakers. And so I think we're ready to start doing some EQ work. So I think that brings us to the end of this episode today, guys. In the next video, we will cover creating individual house curves for each of the speakers, and then EQing those speakers to get rid of all the peaks and dips and to clean up these crossovers and things. And our tunes should start looking a little bit like a typical SQ car audio tune. But I just want to say thanks for sticking through another very lengthy tutorial. I really appreciate it, and if you've got any comments or questions, pop them down below. Otherwise, I will catch you for the third in the series on the analog mic sweeps in the next episode.